I thought before we start the talk, I'd like to give you an introduction. Yes, everybody is familiar of your background and why you're here today. Just to give everybody a background, Venerable Steve is here as an invitation to ABC on his way back to the land of medicine Buddha. And we're extremely privileged to have this opportunity to invite Venerable Steve to share with us his words of wisdom. Venerable Steve has been a long student of Buddhism. He was born in the UK and has been learning about Buddhism since 1977. In 1979, he was ordained as a fully Buddhist monk and received the full ordination the following year. He studied 11 years at Nalanda Monastery in France and another 11 years at Sarah Monastery in South India. He currently teaches the FPMT basic program and leads a variety of retreats at the Land of Medicine Buddha in the US and interprets around the world. As you all may have known, Venerable Steve has been very kindly translating for Karen Sheikh Shishoni for our Manamika Vatara classes on a Saturday and Sunday morning. So for that, we are extremely grateful to you, Steve, for translating for us and for Karen Sheikh that we can access special Buddhist teachings. So without much ado, so today, please, Steve, can you just enlighten us with your words of wisdom about today's topic is karma, your destiny. Thank you.
So good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear? Can everybody hear? Is this good? Up a bit, maybe. Something like that. Oh. How's that? Good for me, yeah. Well, the topic is karma your destiny? Not sure I have much to say about that. I certainly don't think I can talk about it for an hour and a half. So I was thinking we can start off with some meditation, and then I can talk a bit, and then we can kind of discuss around that. Okay? Hope that works. So for the meditation, those who already know, has everybody here meditated before? Has everybody been to the center before? Everybody has? Looks like. Anyway, so you're all accomplished meditators. So best thing maybe is to start off with some focusing our attention on the breath, on our own breath, that is. So I'm sure everybody knows how to do that. You simply focus your attention on the sensation of the air as it's passing along the top lip as you breathe in out through the nose. Just focus your attention on that, without thinking of anything else or anyone else, just that. So actually the kind of meditation I want to do with you to begin with during the first part of the afternoon is kind of, well not kind of, actually completely inspired by listening to His Holiness the Dalai Lama at the beginning of the, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, when he started teaching online. So now you see, so that means I want to show you something. Some of you already know, but I want to show you something which he demonstrated, and I've seen him demonstrating a couple of times. It's a particular kind of breathing meditation. So I was asked if I would like to have one of these to talk in, or one of these that goes around the head. And I think I maybe made the wrong choice, because this is going to get in the way. But maybe I can just move it. Even that's kind of. Yeah. So you won't be able to hear me, so I'll just have to shout. So to do this meditation, it's not a meditation, it's a breathing exercise, okay? Breathing exercise. So to do this, you're going to press the thumb against the base of the ring finger, like this, right? And make a fist. So, yeah, you've got your hands like that, right? On your knees kind of thing. And then like this. I guess I'll demonstrate and explain what I'm doing first of all, and then we'll do it properly together. But you can try and do what I'm doing as well anyway. I mean, it's up to you. Either watch and try it. So like this. So you're bringing your fist, like dragging your fist up to about shoulder level, and like breast level, right? So let's see if everybody went to the right. So you go to the left, right? Everybody went to the left? Yes. You have to watch your neighbor because otherwise you might be in trouble. Then, like that. So now your left index finger is pressing and closing the right nostril. So I hope your noses aren't blocked because otherwise then it gets a bit awkward. And you breathe in. And then you breathe out again, and this time you switch to the other nostril. And when you get to the end of breathing out, then you sort of pull your tummy in a bit more to get some more breath out. Like that. Then at the same time, you do this 3 times. Then the other side. Now, some of this takes some coordinating which you'll pick up as you're doing it, just by doing it. So now your hands, in a fist like that on your knees. And as you're breathing out, you're doing this. In. But on your knees, right? But I'm putting my hands up here so you can see, right? Just so you can see what I'm doing. Otherwise, if I keep my hands on my knees, you won't be able to see what I'm doing. Yeah, that might be better, right? So that's what you're doing for the 3rd round. So 1 round over to the left, 1 over to the right, and then 1 where you're breathing out. So you see you're doing that, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, breathing like that. Okay. So now we'll try to do it through again. Maybe I won't say anything. If you want to try to coordinate with what I'm doing, you can do that. If you feel like just doing it in your own way, then try that. One more time. How's that? So what did you think about that? Just think for a moment. I'm trying to think to myself what that does when you do that exercise. Usually with the breathing exercise, or, like watching your breath, we often say, and it's often taught, that this is so that you do that so that your mind quietens down a bit, because when your breath becomes calmer, which it does as you focus on the breath, your breath becomes calmer, slows down, then your mind slows down. And so because your mind is not rushing so much, it's when you go on to do the main meditation that you've sat down to do, it's going to be easier. Your mind is calmer. I'm trying to remember what they say sometimes about, it's like giving your mind something else to do so that it gets distracted from all the kind of like rushing and worrying and so on that we often come into a meditation room with, or sit down to meditate with. You've been busy all day, so your mind is rushing, and your mind is on this and that, so you give your mind something different to do. You focus it on the breath, and then it's sort of like tricking your mind into being calm. So this is a bit like that. I'm trying to remember what His Holiness said. Somehow, that's what I asked you to, how do you feel about, how did that make you feel? it's sort of, for me, it seems like something gets loosened up. Something got loosened up. Something got cleared up. It's quite interesting, really. The meditation, that breathing exercise actually comes from the 6 yogas of Narompa. So you'd expect it to be something quite profound, and His Holiness didn't explain it any more detail than that. I'm sure there are some very, deep explanations that could go with that. Is this okay? It keeps on wanting to go up. Huh? Okay. I would never have guessed. Is that good? Okay. Anyway, so the way His Holiness recommended, I guess, described a good way to meditate, started with that, and then he talked about meditating on the nature of the mind. I think in between those two, it's good to meditate a little bit on our motivation. So those of you who know how to bring up the mind of bodhicitta, the mind wanting to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, then you can do that, so you know how to make that your motivation for spending this time together. Supposedly talking about karma and destiny. Otherwise, anyway, please do try to think this afternoon, this time I'm spending here, is not just for me, not just for, obviously not for some kind of worldly aim in mind. It's not always obvious, but if you just think about this world that we live in, there's just so much suffering and so much war and anger, and even if we just make our own minds just a little bit better, as like little bit by little bit, by trying to develop such qualities as wisdom and compassion, bodhicitta, loving kindness, that does make the world a better place. So it's our contribution towards peace and pure joy and happiness in the world. So let's spend a few minutes then trying to generate that kind of attitude, an altruistic attitude. So thinking in that way, then that as a human being now I have this incredible opportunity that I don't want to waste, kind of just spending my life thinking only of just worldly things, leaving this life empty-handed, rather to use the time that I have left as much as I can to help others. Mainly the way to help others is through making our own minds better, becoming a better person. Then you really have something to give. And especially using the time for achieving enlightenment for their sake. And that's the purpose of spending this time together this afternoon. So then for meditating on the nature of the mind, meditating on pure mind, it's fairly straightforward. So first of all, not being concerned with the senses and the objects of the senses, not focusing on those, which means not focusing on external objects like visible forms and shapes and colors and sounds and so forth. Not thinking about those, nor the different perceptions, like visual perceptions that take those visual objects as their objects. Just focusing on the mind, which means what it is that does the thinking, analyzing, worrying, the mental consciousness. This is the one that can sometimes experience compassion when thinking of the suffering of others. It's the one that has the faculty, let's say, or ability to analyze, to think things through, to concentrate, to discern what's right and what's wrong. That's the mental consciousness. So the mental consciousness is the mind that's meditating right now. When you're meditating, generally there's going to be something you're meditating on, some object or other, some quality or other. Now here, what you're focusing your attention on is the mind itself. What you're focusing your attention on is what's meditating. And there's an expression that says, what you're seeking in this meditation, what you're seeking is the seeker, is the one that is seeking. So for example, you find yourself thinking about what's going on in this room, what you were doing this morning, what you're planning to do after this. Now what you're meditating on is, what you're focusing your attention on is what it is that's doing the thinking. And it has the qualities of clarity. That's the main thing, clarity. No, in the sense of having no physical attributes, no shape, color, no sound, smell, or taste, or tangibility. So just try that anyway. And don't let it get complicated. It's very simple. You're focusing your attention on what it is that does the meditating, what it is that does the thinking, that is doing the thinking. So when you're doing this meditation, it's only natural you find yourself just, well, anyway, wandering off from what you set out to try and do, meditate, which is meditate on the nature of the mind. Of course, if you don't notice that you've become distracted, then it's a bit difficult to do anything about it. So this is why actually at the beginning of the meditation, you need to make a firm decision. I'm not going to be distracted. And just suppose I get distracted, I'm going to bring my mind back straight away. So, and that actually does help. Making a firm decision not to be distracted helps you to avoid being distracted. So then when you are distracted, when you become distracted, and you noticed, so you decide you want to bring your mind away from the distraction, then here what you do is focus on what it is that's distracted. Not what you've become distracted to, but what it is that's distracted. It's as simple as that. And by focusing your attention on what it is that's being distracted, the mind that's being distracted. So it's like when you're distracted, you're looking outwards. Now what you have to do is go back to looking inwards. And so then by looking at the mind that's distracted, you've brought your mind back to your object of meditation. And you just have to keep trying. And then if we finish off the meditation with a little bit of meditation on the nature of the self, searching for the I, you could call it. So this is also quite simple. When we think I, we generally have this sense of an I that's like the owner of my body and mind. We feel very strongly, I think all of us, of me, I, as something that's separate from my body and mind, the owner of my body and mind. So that I that seems like the controller of our body and mind. So here it's a question of looking for that I in our body and in our mind. like His Holiness says, is very strange because we have such a strong sense of that kind of an I, but when you look for it in your body and mind, you can't find it. So this is very strange. So anyway, let's just try doing that then. Okay, so you think I, you have this sense of an I, that's like the one in control, one who controls one's body and mind. But when you look for that I in your body and mind, then you can't find it. Okay, so did anybody find their I? In the Mahamudra teachings, there's a tradition that at a certain point everybody gets a free session where they have to go and try and find their I. I never heard of anybody finding one though. Okay, but anyway, we better do is spend some time talking about karma, otherwise I might get into trouble. So anyway, yeah, is karma your destiny? Is karma your destiny? I don't know. Yes, anyway, I mean, you know, the Tibetan lamas, the teachers and so on, they always talk about karma and its results. They never just talk about karma and its results. So really, you know, we've got cause and effect and karma and its results, and they're not the same thing. So karma and its cause and effect is a general thing, And then within that, you've got karma and its results. And I think the way some people put it is that when you introduce the ingredient of intention, then you're talking about karma and its results. Otherwise, it's more of a general thing. So, cause and effect, and it's quite interesting, really. Cause and effect. So, I remember when I was quite new in Buddhism. I don't know why, but somehow somebody had produced these badges, kind of lapel badges, with the Buddha's dependent arising slogan written on them. So it was like, dependent arising is the Buddha's slogan. Anyway, it's very clear that actually the whole of the Buddhist path is completely based upon dependent arising, in the sense of causes leading to results. Because of this cause, that result happening. So, I mean, in a way, karma is as simple as that. It's like things happen because of causes. If you do this, it's going to lead to this kind of result. If you do that, it's going to lead to that kind of result. So I was thinking, one of the ancient Indian philosophical schools, and I can't remember which one it is now. Anyway, it's one of the ones that the Buddhists argue against. So they say, not like there's no such thing as cause and effect, but some things don't have a cause. So it's not completely universal, cause and effect. Some things don't have a cause. And some of you that have been studying these things, and you'll have heard this, like, for example, the roundness of a pea has no causes. What do you think they mean by that? Why would somebody say the roundness of a pea has no cause? It makes me think about, I think something like the watchmaker proof of the existence of God. So, if you see a watch, you know that somebody had to make that because it's too complicated to happen just by itself. And so in the same way, there are things in nature that none of us could make, therefore there must be a God that made them. So it's a bit like that. I think it's connected. The roundness of a pea. Nobody made the pea round, therefore there's no cause for it being round. And likewise, the colors of a peacock's feather. And then what's the other one? The sharpness of a thorn. Nobody made it sharp, so therefore there must be no cause for it to have happened. So that kind of assumes that when we talk about cause and effect, then the cause should involve us in making that effect happen. But that's kind of ridiculous, I think, anyway. So so we know, don't we, that those things all have a cause, right? We don't know what the cause is, but we know there's a cause, right? I mean, what do peas grow from? I don't know, peas grow from, what do they grow from? Apple trees grow from apple seeds, right? What do peas grow from? Does anybody know? They grow from a pea plant. I'm sure you're right there. Maybe. Anyway, so yeah. So the plant from which the pea grows, there's no choice but from that cause, but for this result to happen, right? So something in the, I don't know, would you say genes or the DNA of a plant? I mean, it's all there in the plant, isn't it? The kind of, I don't know, product that's going to come from that. In the same way, you know, when we talk about the general nature of karma, karma is definite, so that then they use the external analogy or example of like apple trees growing from apple seeds and pear trees growing from pear seeds. You never get an apple tree growing from a pear seed or a pear tree growing from an apple seed. So it's all right there in the seed, isn't it? So that's the cause, and then the kind of result is going to produced is not going to be just any result, any kind of random result, but a particular kind of result. And I mean, can anybody think of anything in the world that doesn't, isn't based upon that principle of cause and effect? Keeping in mind that just because you don't know what the cause is doesn't mean to say there isn't a cause, right? And we wouldn't normally assume that either. I mean, I don't really know why it is that a pea grows round, but I know that it's not something that's without causes. It's right there in the plant, right? You get these pods growing from that plant, and inside the pod there are these round green peas, and that's just the way cause and effect works in nature. And what is there? Seriously, what is there that doesn't happen because of causes? What result is there that we see in our lives that doesn't happen because of causes? Well, one of the things that's mentioned in the write-up for the course, I think it goes something like this. How is it that some people do good things, but bad things happen to them? And then some people do bad things, and it seems like only good things happen to them. So the question kind of implies that there are some people who have bad things happen to them that didn't create the cause for it, right? And also there are some people that have good things happen to them, but it seems like they didn't create the cause, they only did bad things. And of course, I mean, I'm sure we all know that the fallacy in that is that you're excluding any kind of consideration about past lives. So usually, I mean, I've heard my teachers talking about this quite often. So the person who spends their whole life doing bad things and only good things happen to them, so the result of the bad things they're going to do is going to happen to them eventually. It might not happen in this life, but some future life. And the good things that happen to that person are not because of the bad things they did, like during that life, but because of good things that they did in previous lives. And so it works like that. But you can see how it would be possible to come to that conclusion. You can't see what you've done that made these bad things happen to you, so karma can't be true, right? That would be the one that would mostly put us off the idea that of the truth of karma. I don't think anybody's going to complain that all sorts of nice things happen to them and they can't think what they did to make those things happen. Nobody complains about that. Mostly people complain because, the bad things are happening. They can't think what they did to make this. I've been a good, devoted Buddhist, making my offerings at the temple, and praying to the Buddha and so on, and all these bad things happen to me. Yeah, and yeah, I mean, people really get quite upset about that too. They feel like they've been tricked. Lama Zopa sometimes would tell stories about people he knew that got really upset because something bad happened and Buddha hadn't taken care of things. I mean, that's another layer of misconception, isn't it? That if I have faith in the Buddha, then the Buddha will make sure everything is okay for me. Like the Dalai Lama talks about the old woman that would come and greet him, I guess, I don't know, every year, and say to him, please don't send me to the hell realms. So sometimes people are even Buddhist, or at least nominally Buddhist. In other words, they've got faith in the Buddha and the Dharma and so on, but just don't understand. Just don't understand. You think it's in the hands of the Buddhas. Actually, the Buddha has no control over our karma. Karma is even stronger than the Buddha. So anyway, yeah. Then karma and destiny and free will and things. Of course, there are people that spend their whole lives writing and teaching and thinking about free will, right? Get quite famous from it. So, I mean, I don't know about all these theories about free will, but what I think is there are certain ways of, let's say there are certain theories about what free will means that actually are self-defeating because they're like impossible. So we don't have, for example, I don't have the choice to just ignore gravity, to just go kind of like floating around, right? So does that mean I don't have free will? No, it just means that there are certain things that you can't do and certain things that you can do. So really, free will means when you're able to make choices and without being forced, constrained by other people. That's it, really. So we have the freedom. There's nobody that stops us from coming along to ABC, right? There's nobody that's going to arrest us. There's nobody that's going to stop us. We have the choice. And interestingly, a certain amount of free will comes from, what do you call it? Well, let's say wealth. In other words, you know, if you are living at the other end of the island, I don't know if this makes sense, but anyway, living at the other end of the island and you don't have money and you don't have a car, so you just have to walk, so you just end up not coming. Or because you've got you've got such difficulties with money that you have to spend your whole time just trying to earn money in order to pay for the roof over your head and food to eat. So it's like you've got less choices in that way. So the point is that karma doesn't imply that there's no free will. Karma implies there is such a thing as free will, but free will doesn't mean the freedom to have things happen to you that you didn't create the cause for. So that's kind of basically my idea about free will and so on. I don't know if I've got much more to say. Anybody have anything they want to contribute? Any or questions or something or whatever? As I said, we'd have some meditation, then talk a bit, and then have some discussion. So if nobody's got any questions, we can just stop there. Maybe there's somebody that has a question but is too shy.
Venerable, can I ask you, how long does the karma takes to ripen?
How long does it take for karma to ripen?
Yes.
That's a very good question, actually. So when we talk about the general features of karma, general characteristics of karma, so anyway, what are they? You've got that karma is definite. So what that comes down to is just like you only get an apple tree growing from an apple seed and a pear tree growing from a pear seed. You only get happiness coming from doing good things, and you only get suffering coming from doing bad things. So it's fixed in that sense. Then it increases, so just like you can get a huge tree growing from a small seed or small acorn or whatever. Likewise, even though what you do might seem very small, it can lead to huge results. Then you don't experience the result of something you didn't create the cause for. So that's good in one way, because it means that if you didn't create the cause for suffering, you won't suffer. But on the other hand, also, if you haven't created a cause for happiness, then you won't experience happiness. So that's the third one. Your question is more to do with the fourth one, which is that once you've, let's say, done some action, karma, created some karma, the result will never be lost, no matter how much time passes. So what that implies is that you could have, let's say you've done something good, helping somebody, making offerings to the Buddha or whatever it might be, and you dedicate well, that's always important. Then, even though you might not get the result in that very lifetime, it will come eventually. Maybe the next life, maybe the life after that. It could be 1,000 lives, it could be eons later. Things that are happening to us right now might be the result of things that we did many, many millions, billions of years ago. So the karma is never lost. And as I say, what that implies is there's no limit to how long it might take before. You see, the karma is like the seed, and then you need the cooperative conditions for making that seed grow into the result that you created the cause for. So it could take a long, long time, many lifetimes, before all of the conditions come together to combine with that seed, karmic seed, so you get the result of that karma. Right?
So in Buddhism, there are things like divination or astrology, right? And then based on that, there's this idea that, we can then change our actions, then is that how we change our karma?
So really the connection between astrology and so on and karma, right? I think that, based upon the teaching of karma, you still have the idea, because, it's not just the karma, it's also the cooperative conditions. So if you know that we know that if you get yourself into certain conditions, maybe certain bad things are going to happen to you. Like, for example, you know that if you jump into a fire, you're going to get burnt, right? So just like that, there are certain situations that you want to avoid because it seems like just part of our human knowledge is that that kind of situation is going to make bad things happen. You know, like drinking poisonous water and things like that, or drinking water from a really bad source kind of thing. So I think it's a bit like that, actually. So, you know, if you meet somebody who really is a genuine astrologer, then they know the kind of thing that you might need to avoid doing and what would be a kind of good thing to do in terms of the cooperative conditions for making karma ripen. Does that make sense? Huh? Kind of. Yeah, because what else could astrology mean? It's not so much, I mean, you can change your karma in the sense that you change the conditions which affects the kind of karma that's going to ripen. Yeah. Yeah, that's all I can think of. I think you might have said Venerable George. He's a good friend, actually, but we are not the same person.
Yes, I did, Venerable Steve. So when I understand that free will is when one has the choice to make a decision that is not under force.
Forced by other people, yeah. Yeah.
As simple
Yeah.
as that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, Venerable Steve. When you say a choice, you can make choice, but the thing is, if free will is not subject to any force, right? What it says. So the thing is, free will also may be subjected to the karma, right? Let's say I want to come here over here, but certain thing even I want to decide to try to come over here, but because of karma, there's something happens that I cannot come over. So it's also subjective to the karma, right? Mm. So it's also not really free, you know. It's
that's why I think that when we talk about free will, it's whether other people are controlling you before. You don't have the freedom to ignore karma, to like act outside of or live outside of karma. So yeah, you're affected by karma, but are there other people that are?
I can make the choice, but it's not really that it's come true, but it's also some sort of fixed by the karma.
Are you talking about like the not having the idea that we don't have choice because even the choices that we make are actually illusory because actually we make them because of our karma?
Yeah, something like
yeah.
It's so controlled by karma.
Yeah. Yeah, we are controlled by karma. And that's why I think that defining free will in terms of whether you are controlled by karma or not is not very fruitful. So for me, I feel like I can say I have free will because I had the choice of, for example, concrete example. I had the choice whether I was going to stop off in Singapore for these 2 weeks. Nobody else made me. You can say that the choice was shaped by my karma and my previous experiences and so on, so I had no choice. And there's some truth in that. Maybe that is true. But the point is that nobody made me. Nobody else made me. And nobody made me say yes when I was asked to come along and give this talk. Somebody was quite forceful about coming along, but I still could have said, no, I can't do that. So there was nobody forcing me. And for me, it's just like that's the only way of understanding free will that makes sense, because otherwise I'm going to end up saying, I have no free will, I have no choice, it's all fate, it's all predestined, and so I'm just going to completely, I can't think of the word, but anyway, just completely, you become completely irresponsible. In the sense, you just don't take responsibility for anything that happens to you, anything that you do with your life, because you have no choice. It's going to what's going to happen is going to happen. You see what I mean?
Yeah, okay, but the thing is, there's something like they say prophecies. So when you see prophecies, but they already know that certain things happen, will prophecies is always come true or not?
I didn't quite.
Prophesize.
Oh, prophecies.
Yes.
Say that again. Sorry. So now I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, prophecies is sometimes they can predict.
Making predictions.
Yes, but most of prophecies is always come true. So doesn't mean that it's something like fixed.
I didn't quite get that. Sorry. I don't quite get what you're trying to say. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It's giving you an impression that it's
The
something
things
like
are fixed.
fixed.
Yeah. Yeah, the Buddha predicting that a Sangha would come after a certain time, and then Nagarjuna likewise, and even predicted the Lama Tsongkhapa. And in fact, the part of the not cosmology, but anyway, the Abhidharma they call, so the knowledge. It talks about after, I can't remember exact figures, being like 500 years after the Buddha's gone, then the next 500, and then this is the point at which there will be the Dharma will not be at all present in the world. So making predictions, that kind of prediction as well, yeah. And yeah, I also think to myself sometimes, maybe all of that is a bit like our lifespan. They talk about how you come into this life with a fixed lifespan according to your karma. If you've created the karma to live 100 years, then that would be your lifespan. Or it could be 80 years, it could be 110 years. But you don't necessarily live out your entire lifespan. Things can go wrong, like running out of merit and not being careful and so on in the way you eat. Then you might not live that long. So I think some of the things that the Buddha predicted, maybe it's a bit like that, that this is how things could be, or this is how things are likely to be. But things could also change within that. But I don't know. I mean, the thing is, isn't it a bit like predicting the weather? No.
No, the thing is, if the result is 100% right, then it's become a fix. If you're not 100%, then it's not. it's not true. Not,
So the kind of predictions you're talking about, like, are the ones that the Buddha himself made, right? Yeah?
so it's always come true, right?
So give me an example of what the Buddha predicted that actually happened.
They prophesied this, I can't remember what it is. That like Tibetan, there will be a Lama come over to go over to teach the Buddhism, right? So it's come true, right? I mean, some sort, I can't remember the.
I think also like the Buddha predicted that that his teachings would gradually go further and further north,
Yes.
which it did.
Uh-huh.
So then so he predicted it, which means that it must have been fixed, that it was going to happen whatever anybody did, and therefore there's no free will. Is that what you mean?
There's something like fixed, something like it happens, controlled by the karma.
Yeah.
Yes.
If somebody can predict it, it must mean that it's fixed. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So some things are fixed.
So the destination is fixed.
So again, you see, maybe it's quite interesting, really, because, for example, I mean, this would apply to all of us. Eventually we're going to die, right? Eventually each one of us will die. So there is the day of our death, right? We don't know what it is, but there is the day of our death. So if there is such a thing as the day of our death, does that mean to say that our lifespan is completely fixed? And this is why that kind of thing, I mean, when I find myself puzzling over that, I can see again, it's like trying to define free will in that way just doesn't seem to work. And the only way that the idea of free will seems to work for me is whether other people are controlling your life or not, whether you can make choices.
Even if even the thought that we do the choice that make is our thought, right? Our intention. But intention also depends on the karma, right? Because you have such a thought, because previously what you say, the karma is fixed. You're good, you have an evil thought, you'll have an evil thought because you did evil things. So your good thought, so it's also controlled by the karma also. Thought that your intention also.
Okay, so even if other people aren't controlling us, our own karma is controlling us.
Yes.
Which means it's like illusory free will. I think that's a thing, actually, illusory free will. Okay, so that's what we have then. Free will means illusory free will.
I don't know. That's why I was puzzled about it.
We'll have to make do with that for the time being. Illusory free will. Better live with the illusion as well. Okay.
Venerable, earlier, I think for the first question, you mentioned that part of karma, I think the fourth aspect of karma is that karma is never lost. It's always there. So then, how would you explain the process of purification? Because purification, like for example, you do a certain ritual, confession, and then making the promise to never do it again, etc. So let's say it's all very genuine, very sincere. you managed to purify your karma, but then you didn't suffer the effects of the negative things that you did. So from that, it seems as if you managed to escape it. So how does that work?
Yeah, you can definitely escape it by purification practice. So the thing is, if you go into that, if we state that fourth one more precisely, the result is never lost. What that means is the result of, let's say, good actions are never lost unless they're destroyed by anger. And that's why they always say it's very important to dedicate properly, because if you dedicate properly, then even if you get angry, it doesn't destroy your good karma. So then eventually it will bring its result. It will be never lost. It'll never be lost. And in the case of the bad actions, the results of bad actions will never be lost unless you purify. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello, Venerable Steve. Nice to see you in Singapore after Nepal. My question is, what are your views on collective karma? I mean, sometimes we talk about being, whether it's Singapore or in the world, and we are Buddhists, we believe karma is an intention, but karma must work for non-Buddhists too, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's universal. So how does collective karma works in, let's say, any place, Singapore, whatever, where not everybody is a Buddhist, but karma is intention. So maybe, I know it's a very vague thing, but people always talk about collective karma, and I can't figure it out.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that. I wonder, this might be relevant when we talk about collective karma. So let's say there's an election, and then a certain person gets voted in, and mainly that person would get voted in by the people that voted for that person, right? I know that there are tactical votes, but just forget about that for now. Anyway, that person got into power because of the votes, because of those voters. Maybe not because of the people who voted for somebody else, right? Just those people who voted. So those people could be Buddhist, non-Buddhist, they could be believers, atheists, they could be anything, couldn't they? But they all got together to vote that person in, and so there's that initial collective karma that they've created, and I think you can probably say that everything that person who's been elected, the new president or prime minister or whatever, everything that they do, the people who voted that person in have a share in, right? Because somehow the vote enabled them, was like approval. Maybe it's more complicated than that, but I'm just trying to think of an example where, because like most of the time when we talk about collective karma, we talk about how like right at this moment as a group we're creating karma together. We're all, well, actually I don't know. I assume we're all Buddhists, but we might not all be Buddhists. But in fact, that would be. Anyway, so that could be a similar thing. You're all of those people with different kinds of motivation is another way of putting it, right? So some people are thinking that by voting this person in, this will happen. Some people are thinking, well, that'll happen. But in any case, they all got together to vote that person in. So that would be collective karma, wouldn't it? And now I'm losing the plot a bit. So the thing is that there can be all kinds of situations where people with different backgrounds and different kinds of motivation, they get together to carry out a particular act. And that would be their collective karma. And because their attitude, their intention and so on, were different, not everybody has the same one, right? Same intention. So when they're experiencing the result together, the way they experience that result can vary. Would definitely vary, in fact. Does that help at all?
I mean, I guess so. Which means that it can be very powerful collective karma, affecting a group of people, a country. Because I'm thinking of, the postcard that we had about Ganden Tree, about what he said about Tibet and China. There's some karmic relationship, and how Tibetans should forgive in a way China because of some.
Should not what, sorry?
I mean, should not have in a very aggressive attitude towards the Chinese because of some collective karma. So I was just reflecting about that on a scale of how does that.
So maybe what he was saying is that what happened to the Tibetans was primarily the result of the Tibetans' own karma, their own collective karma, some past life, perhaps many lifetimes ago. That group of people that were later going to become the Tibetans that were affected by the invasion and so on, that they did something together, who knows what, difficult to know the details, and that's the main reason for the difficulties that they're experiencing, not the Red Chinese. I think this is maybe what he was saying, don't blame it on them. And this is, because this is the one of the big teachings in Buddhism, isn't it? You don't blame other people for your problems. You think of it more in terms of your own karma. So likewise, as a nation, don't blame Mao Zedong and so on. He's just one of the correlative conditions for all of this to happen. The main cause is your own karma, the group karma of this, of this nation.
Kind of depressing, right?
Which part of it?
I mean, the fact that in the end it comes back to the individual. When you look at what's happening, globally too. Globally, the situation. I mean, it comes back to us. Whether it's climate crisis, maybe the Gaza war, I don't know. But I mean, it's kind of depressing too, that it comes back to us as the individual, and we are just so small.
I think maybe if I think personally, what's depressing is maybe the thought that I've done a lot of things in this life and past lives, which I'm going to have to experience suffering as a result of, unless I purify, and purifying everything is not easy. But it's also a bit of relief to know that it's not in somebody else's hands. Because then if it's somebody else's hands, it's like, if I please this person, things are going to go well for me. If I don't please this person, they're going to punish me, even no matter what else I do with my life. Whereas here, it's completely, it's completely up to you.
Okay, thank you.
Venerable Steve, consider about this collective karma. Sometimes I feel that not all the people that created, like, for example, the war in Gaza, right? The war is created by certain terrorists, but some people are very innocent. But it's affected everybody in the country.
Yeah.
So it seems like that the current collective karma is override everything, even that the person is not involved at all. So how is it explained?
So I want to get your question clear. So you're talking about the fact that, like, if a country's been invaded and the kind of suffering that so many people experience as a result of that?
I'm saying that because of this collective karma is so strong, let's say 70% created this collective karma, but 30% are not involved. But this result.
What do you mean by that? 30% are not involved.
Let's say of all the citizens in that country, 70% have created some karma. They come in the effect of war, right? But 30% is not created that karma. That it's not involved in that collective karma.
Okay.
But the war affect everybody's. So it also affect the 30% of that. So how you explain that?
Well, I'm not sure, but one thing is that if we talk about 70% and 30%, if 70% were involved in creating the karma,
Yes,
and 30% were not,
yes.
then 70% will experience the result and 30% won't.
But the karma will affect everybody. The war is affect everybody. Because
I mean, would you say, for example, okay, I mean, without wanting to get into politics, but just suppose, I mean, what's going on in Gaza, right? Is the whole world experiencing the result of collective karma for that to happen? Because even though I'm not there and I'm not living my life in fear of being bombed and so on, I'm still living in the world in which that's happening, and it still affects me a bit. So have I created the karma? Is it, anyway, to put the question exactly
the question is
again,
not,
is everybody in the world part of that collective karma? Did we all, everybody in this world, create the karma for that to happen? Could be. I'm not sure. Gets quite complicated, you know, after a while.
Hi, Venerable. Yeah, this was related to one of the earlier questions about when you mentioned voting for someone who you vote in. We know from studying that, for karma, it's not only the action that you do, but when you cause other people to do it, like I don't kill, but I get someone to kill for me, so I have the same karma, right? So the idea is that if a president sends his soldiers to war, he has the same karma as the number of people that's killed.
Yeah.
Correct? So how about the people who voted for that president, knowing what that president is going to do, all the negative things that he does the person who's elected that president chose that president who blatantly lies, who engage in sexual harassment and so forth. There are politicians like that. Do they get the negative karma of making that choice?
Allegedly.
True. Allegedly, yes.
Right.
But do they get, because they make presumably informed choice, so do they also create the karma of making the choice of that president?
I think there's no simple answer to that, actually, because amongst all the people that voted that person in, some people really believed their lies. Some didn't believe, but thought that they would rather have that person in office anyway. Yeah, they all did the same thing in the sense of actually voting the person in, and therefore, I mean, even just on an ordinary social level, we would say, well, come on, you voted for this. And people would feel, yeah, that was a big mistake. They felt like they would feel they did something wrong. So that, I mean, because that's the whole thing about the collective karma, isn't it? All kinds of different motivations, so that when the result is experienced collectively, it's experienced differently. So just like in the case of a war, some people are affected more badly by the war than others. And that would be because, assuming that's happening because it's the result of their collective karma, the collective karma done by those individuals with different intentions, so that would make a difference also.
So it sounds like the potential negative karma of the person who made that choice is somewhat mitigated by the motivation of that person. For example, if he genuinely believed in a positive way that whatever this politician was doing was something that was beneficial for the country.
Yeah,
Is it like
I
that?
think so,
Okay.
yes.
May I ask another question? When we hear sometimes of very devoted students taking on the obstacles of their gurus, we hear that quite often. How does that work from a karmic point of view? Because you've already indicated that we do not experience the karma of actions that we ourselves personally may not have committed. So how do we have the power or the
I'm not
ability to take obstacles,
I'm
take
not
on
really
obstacles?
sure, but I seem to remember hearing around the time when the previous Sokhram Rinpoche passed away, they talked about him having taken on the obstacles of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And an explanation I heard about that, which still makes sense to me, is that somehow somebody like that Sokhram Rinpoche could see, well, first of all, the general fact that we have, I think we could say this planet has, the inhabitants of this planet have the karma, let's say the merit, to have a certain number of holy beings in the world. And so somebody like Sokhram Rinpoche could see from the way things were going in the world at that time that it was either His Holiness who was going to go, or if he were to go, then His Holiness wouldn't need to. And this also controlled by the karma and the merit of the sentient beings in the world. So our merit had become less, so we couldn't have all those holy beings in the world anymore. And so he voluntarily, left this life, and then His Holiness was able to carry on. Yeah. Maybe, was there one more? Maybe last one?
If I see that, I'm talking about in general, the weather. In Singapore, I could say the weather is okay. In other words, there is an equanimity here. Rain, of course, we have also sunshine. Yeah. Is that something related to the being, human being or animal being, who living in the place? I just give an example. Later on, I will continue. But then, is that because of the people in Singapore? Maybe they do meditation, chanting. So the weather become so balanced. I'm talking just Singapore first. Balance, like equanimity in Buddhism, we call it. I don't know whether it's clear.
I don't know. If the weather in Singapore is because of the way that the Singaporeans, if it's because of the way the Singaporeans are meditating, I think they need to change their meditation a bit.
Related, I say, because when you say Singapore, I do a lot of walking in the nature. I'm talking about the nature reserve. I found that it's quite peaceful, but it's also that influence, or maybe related also create a karma, a good karma. So the weather also quite balanced.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, something that is not so recognized in general Buddhism, but comes from, but you find out about in the color chakra system, is that there's a very close relationship between the external elements and the internal elements, so that when the internal elements of the sentient being are pacified, then that pacifies the external elements. So it could, I mean, that's a different thing from the idea of collective karma, right? I think, seems to me anyway. So, you know, like if everybody in the, and there's a kind of, maybe some truth in this, you know, like the world is becoming more crazy and the weather is also, and the elements are also becoming more crazy. The minds of the people in the world becoming more agitated, leading to more agitation in the external elements. But then, I don't know, that and collective karma, I'm not quite sure, I can't quite put that together. Otherwise, from the point of view of collective karma, you would just say, well, yeah, you know, the people who are living here are experiencing the same kind of weather, basically, and so that's the result of their collective karma. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure.
Well, having what you say that, in Singapore, we'll just take the nearest in Malaysia, it's quite close. The weather, what happened to the weather in the place there and what happened to the place here is different. Here is more balanced, peaceful, but not too far from here, although the weather almost the same. But then because of something related with the karma, maybe, it happened more, when you call it hot, or you call it because of the rain, and then there's a flood and so on. I'm just thinking, it's something to do with the people who behave in the place that affecting to the nature.
Well, anyway, yeah, I think that there is room for such an idea. That the external environment being affected by the internal environment. Maybe.
Maybe, okay.
Reverend, are you okay? Are you okay with that one last question? You want that? You really want? You want? No, that's supposed to be the last question.
No,
Okay.
carry on, it's okay.
Oh, I suddenly remembered from the lamb rim.
Yeah.
Why does it say that the karmic results from a non-virtuous action multiplies versus the karmic result from a virtuous action?
Which also multiplies.
From the non-virtuous action, the karmic result multiplies more, or it increases more than from a virtuous action.
I never heard that.
Lam rim. Okay, I'll find it.
It's the same. It's the same. That's the last question. Oh, never mind. Do you mind?
Whether it's not only human being, but what about those hungry ghosts or those hellram that live in Singapore also contribute to correct karma?
Well, I didn't quite hear what you said, but I think that collective karma and everything about karma applies to all kinds of life, not just humans. Is that what you were asking? Yeah. Okay. So we'll stop there then, right? Should we have some dedication prayers? I don't know anything really. Just some general things. In this book, 235 is probably good. Oh, if you can find the dedication page where it's got the, you know, the, like on page 240, 241. Yeah. Let's do those ones. Page 240, 241. That's the one, yeah. So dedicating all of the merits and the virtue of the past, present, and future of oneself and others, including all the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, due to the merits accumulated over 3 times by myself and all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, which are empty from their own side. May I, who is empty from its own side, achieve the state of enlightenment, which is empty from its own side, and lead all sentient beings who are empty from their own side to that state as quickly as possible by myself alone. Because of these merits, may my actions never cause even the slightest harm to any sentient being. Instead, may they bring only the greatest of benefit. Whatever suffering or happy life I experience, may it be only of the greatest benefit to others, causing them to achieve enlightenment as quickly as possible. Like Lama Tsongkhapa, may I be able to offer extensive benefits equaling the limitless sky to all sentient beings and the teachings of the Buddha from now on in all future lives, by having all the qualities of Lama Tsongkhapa within me. Because of the past, present, and future merit created by me and by the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and sentient beings, may I, my family, disciples, and all sentient beings be able to actualize completely in this very lifetime Lama Tsongkhapa's path of unified Sutra and Tantra, which is pure like refined gold. May this pure teaching of Lama Tsongkhapa spread in all directions and flourish forever. Because of all the merits of the 3 times created by me and all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and other sentient beings, may there be no wars, famines, disease, quarreling, fighting, or unhappy minds. May there be great prosperity, and may everything needed be easily obtained. May all the human beings in the world be guided by spiritual leaders teaching only Dharma, and may everyone enjoy the happiness of Dharma. May everyone have perfect conditions and have only compassion and love for each other in their mind streams, and may they only benefit and never harm each other. May I and all others be able to live lives of pure moral conduct like Lama Tsongkhapa himself, train the mind in bodhicitta, and live in pure view and conduct. In this way, may we be able to complete our lives without corrupting the pure wisdom of the second Buddha's teachings. Due to the merits of the 3 times created by myself and others, and by the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, may I, my family members, all the students and benefactors of the organization, and all sentient beings be able to meet perfectly qualified Mahayana virtuous friends in all our future lives. From our side, may we always see them as enlightened and always perform only actions most pleasing to their holy minds. May we always fulfill their holy wishes instantly. Okay, thank you. I think it's raining, isn't it? Has it been raining? Yeah. Huh? Not bad, not so bad, right? I don't know how this turns off.